All right. Welcome to Alpha Reject, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined by Linnaeus Pius, Geronimo, myself, Lysander, and Snickering Spy. Today, we are going to be discussing the formation of the Alpha Legion, the lore behind it, and up into the Scouring. We'll probably do something different later that goes on to the modern era later, but we want to go into the the lore, of course, and just how the Alpha Legion works, how they got their colors, what were they actually doing during the Great Crusade, the heresy, and when they decided just to completely dip out of the heresy up into the Great Scouring. Anyway, we're going to jump into it, and we're going to start with the formation of the Alpha Legion. And we did a little bit of homework on this. Some of the guys read the uh, Legion by Dan Ebnett, and some guys read Head of the Hydra by Mike Brooks. We also watched some other YouTube videos, get some ideas from other content creators. One of the best, I think, personally, is Live from the Black Library. That young man does fantastic works, and he's a huge Alpha Legion fan too. Um, so if we're gonna start, Spy, you started Head of the Hydra. What were some key factors to the formation of the Alpha Legion that you saw or thought was very interesting, especially since everything's a lie and it turns out Alfarius was in fact the first Primarch found, and it was just kept a secret, and he was just ended up being raised by the Emperor and Malcador the Sigillite.
Man, I thought it was so interesting to say the least. Just the fact that for years, like even before the book came out, I know that people thought Horus was the first one found, and then the book came out, and it turns out Alfarius was the first one found, raised by these two essentially. I just thought it was so interesting and turned everything on its head. I think I don't know. It's hard for me to describe it.
I agree, and I think it puts this whole are they loyalists? Are they traitors? It made the whole Alpha Legion narrative of playing both sides possibly even more convoluted because now we have, a son raised by the Emperor, definitely knows what the Emperor is trying to do, was raised by the Sigillite, was trained by the Sigillite on how like block on how to block thoughts and stuff, and it makes you wonder maybe there is a loyalist son and they just switch spots during the Great Crusade because I think something that um, Life in the Black Library talks about is one of the brothers is far less flamboyant in his actions, not nearly as arrogant. I think they're both arrogant, to be completely honest, but one's less. And I like to think that the second son, Omegon, was the one who did agree to what happened in the book, The Legion, and agreeing with the Cabal in trying to help Horus overthrow the Emperor for the good of the universe, even if it was at the cost of the human race. I don't think the son raised by the Emperor would really want to do that. Any thoughts on that, Geronimo?
You know what? That could be the case because they did switch places at the end of the book. He said it himself too at the end. Ever since I took on this masquerade 10 months ago to start this operation, this is when they put the plan to introduce Altharius to the universe.
Yeah.
So he could have been the one that agreed with the Cabal and thought, for the betterment of the universe, we're going to take out Chaos. Because do we really know all the story about what he's been through before Altharius found Omegon?
No, we don't. We have very little. Like, we got that little snippet because everyone thought he was pretty much raised by Xeno's space pirate before this book came out. And it turned
And
out
if
he
you were to
landed.
make up a backstory, that would be the coolest backstory to be able to throw out.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I was raised by pirates. It's almost like a 12-year-old. But go on. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. I love that kind of interjection. But then we come to find out he was raised on a dead world, and he found the ruins of a fallen race, and he found the pale spear. He found that really badass armor that Alfarius met him in, and it just there's so much more mystery to Omegon on what his personal ambitions are, because like Alfarius, when he's on his journey, when he's running the Ghost Legion before they actually name themselves the Alpha Legion, and running around doing things for the Emperor, and he really bought into the Emperor's plan to make the human race the dominant power within the Milky Way galaxy.
If
Anyone
I
else?
may, maybe that's
Go
where
ahead.
we should segue into the Ghost Legion, just so that way people know what we're talking about. The
Well,
beginning.
before we do that, I do want to bring up one point that I think affects all of this, which is since each of the Primarch kind of represents a shard of the Emperor's personality and has certain aspects of his power. I wonder how deep the duplicity and the obfuscation of Alfarius and Omegon is. I mean, did they eventually get to the point where they're truly able to keep their intentions hidden from both Malkador and the Emperor totally? And, to that point where they are almost like the only true free agents because they are not blanks like, the Sisters of Silence would be, but more like just completely unreadable when it comes to the timelines and everything like that.
I don't know. I really don't know. That's a super interesting point. I just don't know. Like the Emperor, we really don't know how powerful the Emperor was in terms of his psyker abilities at the height of the Great Crusade and even into the Horus Heresy. We just don't know. That's interesting, man.
Even then, how would Omegon grasp the same way that Alfarius did it growing up with Malgador, trying to learn that little trick of, someone's in my head. Maybe I should think about something else.
Yeah, and when he's explaining it in the book, when he finally meets Omegon and he explains to him how to do it, and he's like, "Oh, he instantly learned how to do it within one time of telling him how to do it," and it's like bullshit.
Yeah.
No way.
Oh, come on. It works in Star Wars. Why not for him?
Oh, well, let's just remember, Star Wars is like yeah, 40K, which is this dark, awesome thing, and compared to 40K, Star Wars is like Sunday school finger painting project compared. It's not comparable.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yep. Even then, if that's the case, and that truly is the case, how how would they not even affect each other in their way of thinking or, traditional thought?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see how Alfarius, raised by the Emperor, could truly be a traitor when he bought in to the Emperor's plans. He was all in. The one that really just heard it secondhand, would never really had a lot of interaction with the Emperor, is Omegon.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, freaking Alfarius, he saw the destruction of the Thunder Warriors. He was there during the rise and the completion of the Astartes project. He
Mm.
he's been there from almost the beginning. Like, and still think it's super crazy how his pod never really his gestation pod really never left Terra. It's like it like puttered out like a rocket that like putters out before it actually gets into space and lands back on Earth.
Right.
And it's interesting. And then just like what you were saying, there's no way that they could truly have the same mentality of thinking when one was raised one way in a very regimented, you know,
Discipline.
solid education and discipline, just like what you're saying, and then you have another one who pretty much survived all on his own for the first part of his life.
Unless they share a brain almost.
They do share a soul. Like, I think
Right.
that is, I don't, that could be refutable, but it's just from based on what we read in the head of the Hydra. It was, he felt something was missing, something deep inside him was missing his whole life. And they mentioned it multiple times. It became a theme, is that one soul, two bodies. They repeated
Right.
that a couple times within the book.
And it's
All right.
interesting that it's all happened before like the Legion of Astartes was started. Where of him landing there. We know that
Yeah.
time frame.
Yeah, we really don't, and that's one thing I don't. Is like, how long was Alfarius away from Terra? Like, did his gestation pod like make one loop around the sun and then just land back on Earth? Was it sucked into the warp and spat right back out onto Earth? Like, we didn't never really got that part.
Right.
But for the sake of time, let's move on to our next part, which was the establishment of the Ghost Legion, when Alfarius was technically the first Primarch to get his Legion and start doing sneaky stuff out in the universe.
Yes. So,
All right, go ahead, man.
oh, sorry, I had a cough. All right, so how did you want to start out with the Ghost Legion then?
So we're gonna start with the Great Crusade and what they were doing, and how some like what they were doing. They didn't really have colors. They're pretty much black and whatever, and how they would be going out to planets without any of the other legions knowing they were going, taking care of some stuff to make it much more complicit for the other legions to come take over and do a compliance campaign, and how some of them actually did like want glory deep down. Like, they wanted some recognition for what they were doing and they weren't getting any yet. And when they finally revealed themselves to the Dark Angels and Lionel Johnson, it was like everyone was like, "Oh, thank God, this is finally happening." Before we get to um the Randan, campaign, let's talk about the early Ghost Legion, because that's when they finally expose themselves as the Alpha Legion. Spy?
Oh, so I'm always going to be the one to talk. I see.
I'll switch it up.
No, I'm
We
just,
we go
I'm
in order of
busting your
who's best
balls.
looking, Spy. It's okay.
Shit, you wouldn't say that. You met me in real life. Shit. I kind of zoned out a little bit there.
Fucking spy.
His mind, no, he didn't zone out. His mind was betrayed by the forces of chaos trying to distract from this critical conversation here. Doing his
Yeah, pretty
best.
much. Well, I see. Oh god, I'm like trying to get the information out of my head, but my tism won't let me.
Words, spy, words.
Words is hard.
Yeah, they are hard. Geronimo, why don't you go? Because I can't find the words to save my damn life.
Ugh. What was the
What?
question again?
All right, let's talk about the formation of the Ghost Legion and Alfarius's initial push out into the Great Crusade.
Okay. So, we all know that Alpharius was found first. He was given this training. And he was still in the process of being trained while they're doing the Legion Astartes. I found out that there were one of the legions that were formed separately and trained separately from the other legions, while everyone else was being cross-trained. The Alpha Legion, the Salamanders, and the Space Wolves were trained separately, and everyone believes that they were being trained at a means and an end. And we can guess
And what was that end?
And that end was, well, what the Alpha Legion specializes in is pretty much guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
So they're the ones that are going to go in there, do recon, what's the word?
Espionage?
Insurgency, stuff like that.
Yep. And while they do that, they're also going to, conduct acts of chaos. Because what's easier than hitting an enemy? Hitting them when they're down.
Okay.
Well, they definitely did that. I can't remember the planet's name,
There's a lot of
but
planets.
they did that. They did it, and especially in the Head of Hydra book. Basically taking out the, I don't want to say planetary governor. They took out somebody.
It was a general.
Yeah, the general, and basically put it out over the net, saying, "Hey, here's your guy. He's dead. We can strike you anywhere you hide." Essentially,
Psychological warfare.
yeah.
Right.
And I think that's what the Alpha Legion was brought up as, especially like being formed and trained. I honestly believe that the Alpha Legion was never meant to reveal themselves.
You know
Oh,
what?
interesting.
I completely agree with you. I don't think they were supposed to. I think they were supposed to be hanging out in the shadows and maybe, tattletelling on their brothers back to Malkador, if they were doing anything sketchy. And I think you're exactly right.
Well,
I
and
never thought about that until you just said that. Good
well,
for you.
to add on the caveat to that, in the same book, it said that Alfarius has the ability to shield what he looks like, just like the Emperor, because the Emperor can change how he presents himself to everyone.
Yep, I do remember reading that. Um, he didn't
So,
have the same sort of like being able to vanish completely like Corvus Corax, but
or Conrad.
or Conrad. Don't get me started on Conrad.
Oh, trust me, we're gonna talk about Conrad in a very future episode. We're
Okay.
gonna talk about what the pros and cons of each of the Primarchs and why they're good and why some of them suck.
Like
I'm looking at you, Lorgar.
I have I have over 3,000 points of Night Lords for Horus Heresy, and I don't even like Kurz.
I don't either. He's an asshole. But we're gonna get off topic on that.
No. We've
But-
never done that in the entire history of our organization. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, look,
Oh,
squirrel.
Squirrel!
Yeah, no kidding.
Dude, I wish we had a button for Squirrel.
We could get it made.
Like
this is a very tiny squirrel. See, that's
That's
just
a cricket.
oh,
it's a
okay.
tiny squirrel.
Well,
Anyway, yeah, that was
fuck, I lost
a
my-
super good point, Spy.
well, I was
like-
gonna add on to that, and I lost my train of thought.
You do that a lot, but it's okay. We still love.
Yeah.
Hold on to that because Bright reminded me of a question, what you brought up, which is okay. So you've got the Doggy Boys, who are the Emperor's kill team, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
we've got Alpha Legion, who are the sneaky spies. So, what would be the secret purpose of the salamanders? Why are they raised differently? And I know it's a little bit tangential, but I would hate to lose this potential very cool point.
The only thing I can think of is that who is the friendliest towards people? Who is the kindest to the
salamanders.
average person?
Alfarius.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's true.
That's only if
But-
they're all, they're Alpha Legion aligned. They take care of their own.
Well, they take care of their own, but in the same book, Head of the Hydra, they're trying to find, or Alvarius is trying to find information about his brother, and I'm gonna get into some spoilers, but the building that they're in gets attacked by pro Imperium protesters. The people that he's talking to flee the building. He tracks them down, gets the information that he needs, and he very easily could have easily just snapped all three of their necks, been done, and bounced. But instead of that, he took them onto his ship and it
And gave him a new life.
gave them a new life. I mean, being serfs, but
being a serf on an Alpha Legion ship or any other Imperium ships during that time wasn't like being, a slave on a modern Chaos ship. They were treated with
True.
respect, and they were
Right.
given a job. They were given training. They had food in their mouths. They had purpose. Especially after that couple, their lives had been torn apart because they had to flee that planet.
yeah, true.
Yeah.
And like, and I said Alfarius was more kind than Vulcan out of jest. Mostly, we know Vulcan's the best boy when it comes to kindness to people, except Xenos.
Well, that Eldar.
We all have
Sorry,
our blind
child.
spots. We all have our blind spots, after all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, to answer like the question that Geronimo put out was, yeah, what makes them like essentially well, fuck, I keep losing my train of thought.
You're fine, dude.
It's okay.
Geronimo, what was your question again?
I didn't have a question.
No, like you
Ah!
said something about it, about like the Alpha Legion, salamanders, and stuff like that.
That was
Oh,
that
it
was
was just an
Pius'
explanation.
question.
No,
Wow,
Pius. Sorry,
brother is
Pius.
out of it today. Oh man, I love you. So yeah, it's just so what is the purpose? And it's so those each of these three legions has a perspective and in a way that makes them really not fit in with the other legions. So you've got the wild independence of the space doggies, the space wolves, that make it so that yes, they can be the Emperor's hammer because they don't have any strong connections to any of the other legion. They don't mind because they just didn't grow up with them, if you think about it that way. And then the salamanders, they have to be different because in my opinion, there was a desire to instill in them that compassion for humanity that would make the Emperor's vision of, or supposed vision of, eventually turning the Imperium over to humanity possible. That they would facilitate that transition and be the shepherds that make it happen. And then even uh, the forces under Kurz and the Crow would be hesitant to use the sort of saboteur sneaky tactics that the Alpha Legion uses. And so there might have been a sense that no, we can't have them working with each other because all the other legions will complain about how dishonorable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But also being that ace in the pocket to keep an eye on the other legions, because we all know that there were Alpha Legionnaires embedded in every single other legion.
Yep, that was established in Head of the Hydra as well, and I think they even talked about it in Legion with Dan Abnett.
Well, it's like even mentioned through Alfarius's point of view that he was there for most of the Primarchs being found, and most notably the Lion. He knew he was there, standing near the Lion when they found him. And I think it's interesting that to think the Alpha Legion has Legionnaires in every single Legion. Which is not to say that they even could have had Legionnaires in the 2 lost Legions.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're the only ones besides like Malkador, who's dusted at this point, knows exactly what happened to the 2 lost Legions.
That's a really good
and the
point,
2
yeah.
lost Primarchs too.
So, and now this is this is this is technically during the Great Crusade. The Emperor erased a lot of the Primarch's thoughts so they wouldn't remember Malek, what happened on Malek, and the destruction of the other 2 legions. Like, they know it happened, but none of them can recall actually how it happened or who
Or
did
why.
it.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of hinted at it with Russ. He's like Russ knows he did it, at least to one of them, at least to one of the Lost Legions, and
Mhm.
but he never ever really goes into detail. He just goes, "Yep, I remember having to, destroy Trader or Astartes, and I'm the only one that knows what it's like." And I forget what book it was, but he talks about it, and I think it gets mentioned a couple times.
You think that contributes to his drinking problem?
No.
Yeah.
No,
Also,
because I think
we should get back on subject with the Alpha Legion.
Sorry.
uh,
Sorry.
yeah, that's true. I'll save that.
Well, I had a point
later.
though, because we don't know if Alfarius was on Moloch when he erased all of those other Primarchs that knew about its thoughts. So
Hmm.
Alfarius still might have the truth of what happened to the other two Primarchs. Were they females? Were they completely corrupted by chaos already? Were they just non-complicit with the Emperor and like, no, I'm not going to join you, Daddy. Where were you,
Or they
Daddy?
mutated. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or maybe the training he got, maybe there's a possibility that it would have allowed him to compartmentalize his mind, because that's a big part of it too, is compartmentalizing his mind, to be able to hide it in his mind palace so it doesn't get wiped. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
could his relationship with Malkador make it so that he has to hold on to it because there's either knowledge or artifacts or things that are being held on to that are useful there.
Well,
There you go.
and uh, I don't want to get on this side tangent, but if I don't, I'm gonna forget about it, and then it'll never be brought up. But it's very possible that the two Lost Legions. Yes, Russ says, I have destroyed Astartes. I know what it's like. Those two Lost Legions could somewhere still be out there with their two Primarchs, but completely hidden,
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
something.
That's my head canon too. Yep.
Uh,
I just highly doubt that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
know.
That's
It gets talked about way too much.
yeah. I don't know.
There's a really
That's
cool Malkador artwork where Malkador is sitting in a throne, and the two
Yeah, he's got 2 and
armrests.
11. Yeah.
Yeah, the two armrests are skulls, and it says 2 and 11 on it. I'm just like, that's a hint at something where their GW's not going to tell us,
Right.
but
I
that
wish that they would, because it's annoying as hell.
Well, okay, this I can address a little bit. Those are supposed to exist to be filled in by players. That was
yep.
the original intention of
Okay.
those. And then also, this is because I have the talking stick for just a second. I think, just in my opinion, that's Malkador's flex, telling people he's got 2 legions tucked away.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a very good theory too, because even with like the Alpha Legion, it said that there's Alpha Legionnaires in stasis underneath the Imperial Palace.
And the Gobi Desert.
Yeah, and the Gobi Desert. So Malkador very easily, it could be hinted that yes, they were destroyed, but they're actually in stasis somewhere and will only be used as a last Hail Mary, essentially.
Where the
Mm.
hell were they at the Siege of Terra? I think that was a pretty good reason for a goddamn Hail Mary.
Well, here's the
Even
thing.
then, wouldn't
Malkador
he
was
have a
sitting on the throne at that point while the emperor was trying to essentially defeat Horus and basically got killed because of it. So
Yeah.
he hadn't had a chance to deploy those two lost legions and their primarchs.
Or it was seen that, yeah, the Siege of Terror is going to be bad, but it's not the end.
Yeah.
Dude, all right. If none of you mother lickers, I'm pretty much the only one that has read the Siege of Terra here, and
Yeah, you are.
that especially the End of the Death volumes 1, 2, and 3, dude, it got dark. It was done. It was over. Like they should have lost,
But they
but
didn't.
Yeah.
but the Emperor's a tricky mother licker. He's a tricky guy. He's a sneaky boy. He pulled some Alpha Legion screwery on Horus, and got the job done. But like, dude, the the warp was literally being sucked into Terra. It was this two planes were merging. It was insane. Still one of the funnest stories I've ever read in my life. It was fun. It was fun. It was interesting. I know some people didn't like it. I loved it. But back to, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you guys. I think the second
It's okay.
and 11th Legion are gone. I think they're dead.
Dead and
Cool.
gone.
And I think Alfarius knows how it happened or where they were.
Right.
Maybe.
I agree.
Okay, how about this? How about a middle of the road? What if in those skulls or underneath them, there's the gene seed for the 2nd and the 11th?
Well,
They okay. I can attest to this. So
Okay.
they still had spare gene seed from the 2nd and 11th, right?
yes.
Right.
And Call talks about it in I think in the
Was it the
Great
great
Work.
work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he talks about it. He made prototypes, Primaris prototypes from every single legion, all 20 legions.
I have something for this.
Uh-oh.
So, have any of you read the last call and what was his name?
Oh, the Belius
Gene Father,
Belisarius
Team
call
Father.
and
Yeah, no, that's on my list.
fantastic
damn.
book.
You guys want me to tell
Fabius
you then?
Bile. That's what his name.
You guys want me to tell you this then?
Go ahead.
Go for it.
It is confirmed in that book that the Primaris Marines were made from all 20 legions. The gene seed.
Right.
So yeah, they do have the gene seeds from those two lost, dead legions.
What? It's one Primaris Marine. I know that.
It's the original.
It's the original Primaris Marine. His soul does not sit right in his body.
Alpha Primus.
Yes.
Yeah, Alpha Primus. Yep.
He's the shaft of the Space Marine.
He's
But yes, it was confirmed in that book that all 20 gene seeds were used to make the Primaris Marines. It impressed. What was his name again?
Alpha Primus.
No, not him. The guy who,
Belisarius call.
Belisarius Call. It actually impressed him and another Emperor's Children who are
Fabius
working on it.
Bile.
No, there are
Davius
two.
Bile.
Fabius Bile and another were working on it in that book.
Mm.
They were both so impressed of what Call did because it did incorporate all 20 to make that gene seed for the Primaris.
That's totally awesome.
I thought it was just Alpha Primus that had all 20
Yes.
in him. Just Alpha Primus,
Just
not
him.
all the Primaris Marines.
I don't know what he did for all of them, but
Well,
he
they
had
have
all 20.
So the biggest difference between, other than size and speed, than the Firstborn, obviously, is they have 2 extra gene seed organs.
Yes.
The Belisarius furnace and some other organ that he stuffs in them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
That doesn't
So it's been mentioned in 2 different books now, The Great Work and Gene Father, that Call has had the ability to get his hands on gene seed from the 2nd and 11th. All right. Back on track, gentlemen.
Yeah, back on track.
Back on track.
Silver
Spy,
sequin squirrel.
I'm glad you got it off your chest. But now let's get back to Alpha Legion, bro.
Yeah, I don't have anybody else to talk to in my friend group. So you guys are the only ones that are like willing to listen.
That's how my family is with my conspiracies, so I understand.
I'll talk to you about a conspiracy later.
Yes, ah.
So, all right. We're going to rewind just a scotch, just a tad bit, just a little bit, because we completely skipped. I completely skipped the formation of the Blood Games, gentlemen.
Oh
Ooh.
yeah.
We totally missed it because we were so excited about this. So for the viewers, in the book, The Head of the Hydra, the Malkador pretty much tells Alfarius he needs to do some, independent learning and learn some things for himself. So he starts, playing games with himself. And
Whoa. Can we rephrase that?
No.
no,
Okay.
No.
I play games with myself all the time.
Okay. All right.
What
Yeah,
you do with yourself is your business only.
Squirrel.
yeah. It's usually Starfield, but
Okay.
that's how we go. I play games with myself. All right,
Fair enough.
but so he decides to test the Imperial Palace's defenses and stuff like that. Especially, this is when the legions were being supplied and they're making new armor up on Luna and having it sent down to the Imperial Palace and where it's getting shipped in under the Imperial Palace. And he decides to give everything a test. He's even going to test going after the Emperor himself. And it turns into this really fun little mini adventure in the middle of the book where he tries to assassinate the Emperor. And he could have done it. I don't know if the Emperor would have truly died, but he ends up having a cool fight with Constantine Valdor. He did some other sneaky stuff with some automated guns, and Valdor is initially really pissed off that one of his custodians was killed in the process of this. Saw the value in it. He never really liked Alfarius, but he did respect what he did. And this is how we got the Blood Games. We can thank Alfarius. I'm sure a lot of viewers have heard this story before, but super cool tidbit fact about the Alpha Legion and Alfarius is without Alfarius, we would not have the Blood Games with the Custodes.
You are welcome, Custody fanboys.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're welcome, Golden Pajama Boys. Which so
And girls.
and girls, that's right. Wait a minute, that's another question because wasn't that big revealed the result of some reference to the Blood Games?
Yeah. So what the big reveal
So
was?
is Alfarius responsible for so knowing Alfarius's temperament, do you think that maybe he overheard Constantine Valdor saying like, "Oh, we're totally impenetrable. Nothing could penetrate our defenses." And Alfarius was like, "Here, hold
Oh
my ammo
yeah,
sack." Yeah, he's like,
hold my beer.
yeah, exactly.
Pretty much. Like, hey, here you go.
Well,
I you know what? Plausible. It's possible because
mm,
Alfarius loves to test himself, right? He
Right.
gets bashed by Gilliman during a compliance campaign. Like Gilliman's, well, if you would have done it this way, you could have got it done way faster. And Alfarius literally replies with, "That would have been too easy."
Yeah. He likes taking people down a notch. I mean, that's part of his personality.
And he's arrogant.
Yeah.
So
Oh, he is.
arrogant, and it bites him on the. Well, we'll talk about that here very shortly. It bites him in the butt later, for sure.
That it
All right.
does.
All right. We got the Blood Games out of the way. All right. Yeah, we rewinded just a scotch. Now we're back in the Great Crusade, and so we decided to do formation, Great Crusade, and then now we're heading to the influence of the Cabal. But before we really get into the influence of the Cabal, we have to talk about Alfarius finally meeting Omegon. Pious, go.
Well, I think that it was a strange conundrum for that initial interaction between the two of them, because both had this sense that there was a part of them missing. And then when they do interact, it, I don't know. I believe that it would be kind of both comforting and terribly shocking because you've got that clash of ego where, wait, there's someone out here who may be as cool as me. But at the same time that, they've lost their uniqueness, if that makes sense. And it's very symbolic of the duality of the Alpha Legion as a whole. I mean, from top to bottom, it is all epitomized by the twin brothers.
I dig it. I dig it a lot. All right, Juro.
Yes.
When they're first getting into system and going and looking for Omegon, we find out the Rangdan have reappeared. We thought we had wiped them out. And Lionel Johnson is going back at him again, and because the Rangdan had just taken over a couple planets. Did you think that was a cool interaction between, Alfarius just pretending to be a regular space marine when he first meets the lion, and then kind of sort of manipulates the lion, and the lion's not easily manipulated.
I think it was the best interaction to introduce his Legion to activate the,
Mm,
20th.
mm.
Hell yeah.
Because
Because
when you hear about his character, he thought about everything in a way that this isn't sus. We're just trying to do our business now that we are allowed to go out in the universe and try and earn our honors.
Right.
So yeah, I doubt
Mm.
he would suspect anything or anyone else.
dude, I loved that interaction because he literally manipulates the line. He puts that little, well, it sounds like they might be choosing a war master to take over for the emperor when the Great Crusade's over, so the emperor can go back to Terra. And he like puts that little maggot in his ear. Oh yeah, he might be Gilliman, but we all know it should be you. And Blind's like, yeah, it should be me.
Mm-hmm.
And this campaign is taking me way too long. And then Alfaris is like, yeah, so if we help you, we can get this campaign done a little bit quicker so you can go off and gain more honors elsewhere. But Alfarius did say in the book, like, he would have rather have had the lion as the war master than Gilliman or Dorn, or because he's like, Gilliman's too regimented.
Yep.
Dorn's too. I can't trust anyone that doesn't lie, and he really respected the fact that the lion was pretty good at everything.
And then just
And he
Or was it because, at least for him, he saw the lion is easier to manipulate? And I know overall the lion's harder to manipulate, but if he had already figured out the way to do it, you think maybe he saw the lion as more controllable than the others?
maybe, but he also Alfarius. He didn't really talk about Lupercal as being the number one when
Mhm.
he mentioned the first name he mentioned was a name that irritated Alfarius, and that was
Mm.
Gilliman, and then he immediately found out that the lion didn't like Gilliman either,
Right.
which I hope changes. By the way, well, when we get into the Dark Angels, we'll talk about that.
I do
Yeah.
want to add one thing though.
Go ahead.
Please do.
The Dark Angels was the first company he was in when they handled the, you know,
Thunder Warriors.
yep.
Yep, you're dead right. I don't know if anyone read Birth of the Imperium, Valdor, of the Imperium, but that book is a super short read if you guys ever get the chance to read it. It's like 250, 300 pages. It's quick. Or you
Mhm.
can listen to it on Audible in about 6 hours. But I read Head of the Hydra first. And when I read Valdor, I just pictured, as I'm listening to this on Audible, I just pictured Alfarius just running around, slaughtering Thunder Warriors. And it was a cool picture if you haven't read Valdor yet. Super
Right.
interesting.
Yep. And if you guys didn't know, there's only two legions that the Alpha Legion like working with that are actually good combination, and that's the Dark
Right.
Angels and the Iron Warriors.
Really? I never picked up on the Warriors one. Why was that?
Well, they make it easier for sieges. They ain't got no
Oh,
complaints.
They would be a good counterbalance on strengths. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And remember when Petrarabo got
oh,
stricter?
you guys are geniuses. That's why I have you around.
Yep. And you remember when Petrarabo got stricter? I guarantee you they would more than be happy with Alpha Legion help.
Oh, hell yeah. Taking out some key targets, generals, destabilizing the population, making it easier on the siege itself. Oh, it makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
That they would complement each other so well. I've never thought about that till just now.
Well played, sir. Well played.
And with the Dark Angels, who was the first company he learned tactics from, combat from? Who? And even in the book, even his legionaries said it's very easy to work
Or
as a Dark
the,
Angel.
the Raven Wing.
Ravenwing?
I thought it was the Deathwing.
The Deathwing is the Deathwing is like the shock troops, like the big ass
Yeah.
Yeah,
Terminator.
heavy
Oh
Terminator.
yeah.
And
I
Oh yeah.
the Raven
can
Wing
never
is
remember.
the Raven Wing still wears black to this day.
Right.
The rest
They're
of the Legion,
the fast attack, aren't they?
yeah, and sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
I can never remember.
It's okay.
We got you, bro.
Oh, I'm glad you guys got me.
Yeah, well, dude, super good points. Like you guys are coming up with some good points. I'm loving it. Like Spy, your entire comment on how you think Alpha Legion never planned on should have like the Emperor's plan was them to never reveal themselves. And I never thought about that until tonight. I never thought
Yeah.
about I never knew or thought about the whole Dark Angels and Iron Warriors connections until now. Where did you read that?
The wiki.
Oh, the wiki. Oh,
And you know
I'm gonna,
what? This would be an interesting aspect of cross pollination because with the obsession with secrets that the Dark Angels adopt as a result, do you think that that could be an influence of Alpha Legion and Alpharius on them?
Possibly. Maybe there were still
maybe,
loyalist Alpha Legion that just wanted to continue fighting for, the Emperor.
Right.
maybe. Need to move on
The Cabal.
to um the influence of the Cabal. All right, that was in the book Legion by Dan Abnett, and I
Mhm.
know Pius has read that book for sure. Who else has read Legion?
I started it, but I never finished it.
All right, well, basically, one of the most successful generals of the Great Crusade. He's the leader of the Black Lucifers and the Alpha Legion. Gets sent to a planet for a compliance campaign, and John Grammaticus gets deployed by the Cabal because he's been influenced by the Cabal. They have made him a perpetual, or I think he was already a perpetual, but
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think he
it's
was.
like I can't remember if it's like recessive or something, but yeah.
yeah, and he had the special gift. So one, he couldn't die, and two, he could hear a language for like 15 minutes and master it. Like, kind of makes sense with his last name being Grammaticus, but
Yeah.
and he
A
gets
pretty
sent.
cool power, yeah, honestly.
I think it's one of the coolest powers there is.
Yeah.
Lysander, before we
eh,
go any further, we should probably tell people what the Cabal is.
all right. The Cabal is a coalition of various alien races, powerful alien races that had the gift of foresight. Some were Eldar, some were some races I couldn't even describe to you. And they basically came to the conclusion that Horus needed to win the civil war within the Imperium so Chaos could take power and basically eat themselves to death on the souls of humanity. And they pitched this through John Grammaticus to Alpharius or Omegon. I'm pretty sure it was like Omegon. And they bought into it by the end of the book. And then and this is before Horus was ever stabbed with the Athane blade. Is that what it's called? The Athane?
Anathema.
Anathema. Is that what it was? Okay.
So
And way before Horus fell, maybe 10 years before the events of Isfan 3 and Isfan 5. And he bought into it. And it makes me question everything. Like, where was the sun? Because this book, Legion, was written way before Head of the Hydra. It makes me wonder
yeah.
which brother actually had that conference with the Cabal. Because
Yeah.
I personally do not think the son that was raised on Terra would have agreed to that.
Yeah. And I also please go ahead.
Unless he wanted to challenge himself with another trial and, work for him but work against him.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going. Is he infiltrating from the inside?
Yeah. And I read Scars recently, and that book is absolutely amazing. If you're a con fan and you haven't read Scars, boy howdy, or if you're just a White Scars fan, period. If it wasn't for the Alpha Legion pushing the con to the side of the Imperium, the con would have followed Horus. You can thank the Alpha Legion, and that's another theory that a lot of other content creators, a lot of other blogs have talked about was if it wasn't for the Alpha Legion doing their super sneaky shit, maybe coercing people, like it's almost like negative reinforcement,
Right.
pushing the White Scars to seeing how jacked up things are with those aligned with um, Chaos. They would have. I really think if the Khan wouldn't have went to go see the devastation of Prospero and then seeing what has happened to Lotarian, I think he would have sided with Horus.
He probably
And
would have. But I wanted to go back to like the whole fact about Well, it's believed that Alfarius was the one that attended the meeting with the Cabal and stuff like that, and I wholeheartedly believe that after like listening to head of the Hydra, I think it was Omegon that actually went to the meeting, said, "Okay, this makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna do this and side with Horus." The fact that Omegon was on a dead world, killed a bunch of space pirates, and had been drifting around space, essentially.
Right.
He never really I think he never really got to develop the way that Alfarius did. Alfarius knew the Emperor's plans. So why in the world would Alfarius side with the Cabal when Alfarius knew the plans of the Emperor?
That's what I'm saying.
Hmm.
I
Good point.
and to the fact that he got the White Scars to be like, okay, this is jacked up. I want to go side. I'm gonna stay loyal. Screw chaos. I'm not a part of that. They're gonna destroy the universe and kill everybody in it. I think that sounds more of Alfarius than Omegon. Because everybody believes that Omegon is still alive. He's just
Right.
somewhere. But
And
I think that on Pluto, Omegon is the one that died. And Alfarius is still in the shadows, pulling the strings. He's not able to control all of his sons, especially the war bands.
we're gonna get into this. We're gonna get into the disbursement.
Yeah. So
Right. And I think this is a good segue into the disbursement. Unless anyone has anything else to add to the influence of the Cabal.
I just one quick comment about the Cabal. It's important to remember that yeah, they're super smart and they have this vision of the future, supposedly, but how many times have we been revisited with the idea that um, future sight is not perfect? And further, the idea that humanity is portrayed as incredibly racist in the 40K universe. Yes, they probably are.
I would
Who's
say
not to say,
Xenoist.
sorry, Xenoist, but who's to say that these other enlightened Cabal species are not just as Xenoist?
Oh, they literally are. They
Exactly.
like they literally are. They look at humanity as a lesser form of life and
Right.
expendable.
Right. So
Expendable to
I
the
think
point.
it's very short-sighted to just assume that getting rid of humanity is going to solve. I mean, humanity may be the chosen uh, snack mix of chaos at that time, but the Eldar had already proven that they were pretty successful at feeding chaos themselves.
Yes.
Even then, throughout the galaxy, Xenos were still being influenced, even through the Great Crusade.
Right.
Like,
I
what was
mean,
that race called with the Leia blade that turned, fully turned Fulgrim?
The snake people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then ironically
I mean, the
freaking
Eldar are the reason why Slaanesh is a thing.
Yep. And even
So
then,
what's to
there's
say that Chaos couldn't influence, like the other three Chaos gods couldn't influence the Eldar?
they did. I know of two of them. I can't remember the
Yeah.
races, but one was Korn, one was Nurgle.
I
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
cannot
it's
picture a Nurgle Eldar. I can't do it.
It's not
Neither
Eldar.
can I.
It's not Eldar.
no, it's
There are
Oh,
two
okay.
different species, and they actually influenced them. One was a Cornite, and one was a Nurgle. But I'm forgetting the races and the references, but I know they're out there.
Okay. I think one of the biggest reasons why humans are very emotional creatures, and if you read more into the warp is like concentrated emotion.
Well,
right.
it's
And
exactly what it is. It's a sea of emotion.
exactly. And for whatever reason, anger, pain, those sorts of emotions are very, very strong. And uh, I've seen influencers talk about it, like how the warp wasn't only just pain and suffering, revenge, y- bloodlust, pleasure lust, and how when the warp in the time of the old ones was all there was also love, longing within the warp that you really don't see anymore because it's been just how
Right.
horrible the universe is currently.
And even the primary four chaos entities, it was their mirror their not, excuse me, not the other four, but the existing three chaos entities, it was their mirror aspects that were more prominent. Like Zinch was more about creativity, and Korn was more about honor, and Nurgle was more about fortitude and perseverance.
Yep.
I mean, all the Chaos Gods have two sides of them. They have the positive emotions, or not positive emotions, but the positives and the negatives. And it's the negatives are more focused on than the positives, which makes the Chaos Gods more powerful through the negatives.
Right? It's easier. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier. So
The
that's
archetype.
why
Oh, sorry.
they're so. That's one of the way. That's why they are the way they are. Guaranteed,
I
if
believe it. I believe it. Maybe we'll go the route of Age of Sigmar, and we'll eventually get some gods of order, and
yeah,
the Emperor being the primary god of order.
I mean, GW very easily could do that. Will they? Probably not. But I don't know. They
Are
very
we on a
easily
silver
could.
squirrel here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
And
right,
that's
back
not
to
to
it.
I am the king of the silver squirrel, so I don't mean to call anybody out or anything.
Oh, I think this topic is very relevant to the influence of the Cabal and why they wanted to sacrifice the entire human race to the chaos gods so they would eat themselves to death and then not have any sort of food left to keep themselves sustained.
Yeah, that's not true. With the whole, they're gonna starve themselves once humanity dies out. But I
That
don't
was
want
their
to go
plan.
back.
I think it was a stupid freaking plan in the first place, and I can't believe uh Alfarius or Omegon agreed to it. Like it made like when I look back on
Oh
it,
yeah.
it was a great book. I loved the book, but when I really did some introspection, and I was like, this is the dumbest plan ever, and I can't believe you only have because like even Eldran from the Eldar, he sees so many different paths to so many different fates
Right.
that like there can't just be two outcomes. No way. I know Kurz was obsessed with a singular outcome, and didn't believe that it could be changed. But Sanguinius absolutely believed that the future could be changed.
Right.
Um, it was frustrating. Like very, very frustrating. And I got into the hobby as a big Alpha Legion and Blood Angels fan, and when I read that book, 'cause I wanted to know more about. It was one of the first books I read after I finished the first four of the Horus Heresy,
Uh-huh.
and I looked back on it and I watched a ton of looting and all these other videos. And I'm just like, this is a dumb plan. I can't believe they agreed to this. And then after a little while, the Alpha Legion completely left the plan because they're like, yeah, we're gonna go for a third option here,
Mm,
and that's what they did. And that's like when you get into the Siege of Terra, there was three different code words for um, all those Alpha Legion Astartes pre-staged underneath the Imperial Palace.
right.
Like, yeah, it is crazy. And I this was the third time I have read the Head of the Hydra, and I completely the first two times I read the books, I completely missed the comment by Alfarius that there is thousands of Alpha Legions underneath the Gobi Desert, which is like 3,000, 2,000 miles north of the Imperial Palace.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's great. And is he telling the truth?
We don't know. That could be a lie.
Yeah, it could be a bluff. I mean, or
But
my guess. Yes.
but you gotta remember he also mentions that to lie there has to be a half truth to it.
He's
Right.
because the best lies are built on truth.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's absolutely true. That's a deep philosophical point there. So my guess is that yes, there are Alpha Legionnaires tucked away. I just don't think they're under the Gobi Desert.
Who knows? Maybe we'll
So,
find out one day. Mike Brooks needs to
or
elaborate
maybe
on
there's
that.
another secret weapon hidden somewhere under the Gobi Desert. Maybe the Gobi Desert's the truth.
There's always secret weapons everywhere. No one just ever
Yeah.
Yeah,
finds them again.
yeah, and then they magically find him, like they found that super cannon on Hell outside of Hell's Reach.
Right.
Takes
Come
him
on,
like what, 10,000 years?
yeah, exactly. All right, gentlemen. For the sake of time, um, we're gonna move on to the Battle of Pluto and Disbursement. So, the Battle of Pluto, you can. I have not read this book yet, but I know the gist of it.
Mhm.
The Alpha Legion sneaks up on Pluto, and Pluto is one of the outlying planets. And I guess we can't call it a planet anymore. I'm going to call it a planet till the day I die.
It's
But
still a planet.
thank you.
Will that get us banned from YouTube? Is saying that Pluto's a planet?
No,
Misinformation.
it'll probably just piss off, NASA.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't want them after me.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
What are
Elon
they gonna
Musk is
do?
taking over that. But they snuck up on Pluto because Pluto was a kind of like an outpost for early warning, and
Mhm.
Alpha Legion snuck up on it and launched a fantastic attack on it. And then one of the brothers gets killed by Dorn, and I 100% believe one of the brothers did in fact get shish kebabbed by Mr. Dorn.
Okay.
I don't. You'd have a tough time convincing me otherwise. Just the way the brother was talking, trying to convince Dorn this is the right way to go. So I think it was Omegon, the brother that was not raised on Terra. And after that, a very small amount of Alpha Legion went to Terra. We're talking a very small amount. Ingo Pesh went there, obviously, a couple others, and then all Alpha Legionnaires that were already pre-staged underneath the Imperial Palace with code words and stuff like that. Still have no idea how they got there in the first place, especially with Dorn building all of his defenses and shit. Still don't know how it happened, but you
They
know,
were
it's Alpha
smuggled
Legion.
in as bricks.
You gotta
Okay, so but here's an interesting caveat to that. Bill, could the Alpha Legionnaires have been put underneath the Imperial Palace before Dorne was ever discovered
Oh snap!
and made the Praetorian of Terra?
All right, okay. Here's my problem with that. So the events of the book Legion takes place about 10 years before the fall of Horus. And I just don't see it happening because I'm pretty sure Dorn had already been recalled to Terra by the events of Legion. And if you say they were already pre-staged under there, then how did they get the code words programmed into them before they met the Cabal?
That is interesting.
You guys
I don't know.
seem to be forgetting something. It's the Alpha Legion. They're the masters of espionage. Even when they were the Ghost Legion, they were using all these resources. They had to get their, what's the word? Replacements somehow. Equipment,
Right.
war gear, ships, orders. They
Very
all
true.
got that during the Ghost Legion era, so what's not to say that they already had the means and the ways to make that happen on Terra, and no one would question it.
Well, and
Yeah.
with the knowledge and the insight that Alfarius gained during his little inaugural blood game, he probably just knew about secret ways that had been forgotten.
Yep, there might be some secret railways underneath the Himalayan mountains. Who knows? But I just do not see them being all those Legionnaires being pre-staged underneath the Terra without already having the code words and the mission of each code word programmed into them before being placed there.
Okay, now you just made me think of something else.
Okay.
Let's say that Dorn is already there, fortifying the Imperial Palace. Is it too much of a stretch to say that somehow the Alpha Legionnaires that are underneath the Imperial Palace got their hands on Imperial Fist gear?
Mm.
Ooh,
Went down underneath the palace, went into stasis because
I'll take that.
they're now there, and no one would bat an eye to an Imperial Fist or a Custody.
You know what? That is plausible. To either one, because remember, Alpha Legionnaires are bigger than other Astartes for whatever reason.
So,
Naturally,
how
way.
much bigger? I mean, could they pass as just a really big fist?
or they could easily, yeah, or
a Custodes.
Right.
well, there's one particular book, I can't remember the name of it, or it might be a codex, and I don't know if he's retconned or not, but there's an Imperial Fist that is the shortest Astartes that has ever been alive, but he's one of the strongest.
Oh yeah, the one built like a brick wall. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I can't remember the name, but he's like Mr. 5x5. He's
I
he's the
can't
same
remember his
distance
name.
from his belly button in every direction.
That's hilarious.
So,
All right. Well, so we have some theories on how they got there, but we're gonna get back to Pluto for the sake of time and talk about the disbursement. So a majority of the Legion went to the galactic east. They went as far east as they could because they're like, all right, our Primarch's dead. We're going east. And they didn't go to the Ayaterra, especially during the Great Scouring. They didn't go to the Ayaterra. But we do know that a ton of Alpha Legion did, in fact, get completely corrupted by chaos. Not sure how, but it happened. And we'll talk about that in the next episode with um, maybe I can convince you guys to read Harrow Master at some point. I I truly believe that most of the Alpha Legion has gone full traitor, and I only have examples of like 3 loyalist uh Alpha Legion war bands. But let's get into Alfarius getting shish kebabbed by Dorn and disbursement. Anyone's welcome to jump in.
Well, I'm sorry if I'm jumping the gun here, but the whole uh, aspect of many of the Alpha Legion turning traitor, getting corrupted by chaos, it's just like a good cop who's been undercover for too long,
Ooh,
getting lost in the role.
Donnie Darko. Not yet. Not Donnie Darko. Donnie Brasco.
Yeah.
I have no idea who that is.
Donnie Brasco was a undercover FBI agent that got in really deep with the Italian mob. True story. There's a movie about it.
Yep.
Johnny Depp plays Donnie Brasco, and it's
It's a good movie. Really well
he
done.
he he developed a love for the men that he was interacting with, and he had a really tough time selling them out. He eventually did, but um, he de- he developed a love for that life, the
Yeah.
gangster life, and
And
that
that
that's a good
yeah.
point, Pius. Good point.
And if you think about some of the things that they would have to do to to just fit in, it's like, ugh, that's gonna grind the soul down
Y- Yeah.
eventually.
Have any of you read Harrow Master yet?
Not yet. Is
No,
that one of the Night Lords ones?
No, Harrow
no.
Master is an alpha lead. It's a new. It came out last year. I think it came out a year ago.
Okay.
It's one of the Renegades books. Um,
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out.
uh, we read it for my other book club, and it was super interesting. Like most of the Alpha Legion is very anti-chaos, but they still use it.
Right.
And there's some other examples, but we can get into the modern era next episode.
Right.
But what we do know about the disbursement is most of the Alpha Legion went to the Galactic East to get away. They're like after Alpharius got shish kebabbed, they're like, we're done. We're done. And we really don't know how big the Alpha Legion is. They took very low casualties
Right.
throughout the Great Crusade, just based on their tactics. And a
And they give a
lot of
strong impression of doing just the minimum they had to in order to keep people convinced that they were on the traitor side.
exactly. There in the book the first heretic, they talk about that very thing on how Alfarius has his own agenda, and they don't know if they can truly trust Alfarius. Lupercal talks about this a lot in the first heretic, and Alfarius even had like Alfarius always disliked Lorgar the most. He never liked Lorgar. He makes that very prevalent in the book The First Heretic, and just like you said, he did the bare minimum. Oh, and the book Deliverance Lost. I think that's the book I'm thinking of, is Deliverance Lost, when they poison the gene seed for the Raven Guard. They did the bare minimum. And Alfarius, so the gene crafting technology that and secrets that were given to Corvus Corvax
Right.
were stolen by Alfarius, and he never gives them to Horus. He kept them for himself. So
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Alfarius knows how to make new Astartes, like from scratch.
Right. So they could be pumping them out like Pez
Exactly.
somewhere.
We don't know how big the Alpha Legion truly was at the end of the Horus Heresy. It could have been, you know, how everyone says, like, the Ultramarines are, the largest legion. They're about 250,000 to 300,000 Space Marines. Dude, we could be looking at 300 to 400,000 Alpha Legion at the end of the Horus Heresy, because they took such low casualties.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
It's super interesting thing about it. So imagine there should be way more war bands in the modern era, because they don't take casualties. They are super sneaky. They actually do have great logistics. Maybe not on the same level as Gilliman and the Ultramarines, but they just know how to do shit and take worlds. And like when we get into the modern era, they literally take over worlds and like, we'll protect this world from the Imperium if you just supply us.
Right.
And they do that on a lot of different planets. Like, we're not here to rule you. We just we want your assets when we need them.
Yeah. We need bullets and cheeseburgers. Right.
Exactly. Like, they established their own supply lines. Like, I think that's something the Black Legion could probably learn from. But 40K is 40K. So a lot of shit's
Right.
convoluted.
Yeah.
No,
Sadly.
it is the most straightforward timeline and perspective possible.
Until it gets retconned.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
this is why.
I can think of one retcon that still annoys me to this day.
Uh-oh.
We're not getting into retcons. We're not doing
Not yet.
it. We're not doing it.
Yep.
Retcons piss us off, and we don't want to get in trouble.
Well, I'm glad it got retcon though. That's the thing. Like, it pisses me off the way that they did it.
Uh-huh.
It was the Grey Knights and the Sisters.
Yeah, I knew it.
That one.
Oh,
I hated
God.
that one.
Oh, God. Yeah.
All right, I'm stopping
And
this
I'm-
here.
was
I'm
it-
stopping this here. No, we'll talk about that one in a future episode.
We'll talk
Okay.
that when we dedicate a video to the Sisters.
Yeah. And maybe every once in a while we have to do a vent episode where it's just like,
Yeah, no kidding.
this is what cheeses me off.
Or we
That's
can just.
fair.
I think that's a great idea. Is doing just like maybe one episode every couple of months where we just do a round robin on random stuff. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That
We
it
could
would.
even label it special and call it like Alpha Rejects Support Group or something.
All right.
There's $1
I'm
million
a
idea.
reject, but I can change if I have to, I guess.
All right, gentlemen. So we're nearing the end of this episode. Is there anything that anyone wants to add about um before we get into closing comments about the Battle of Pluto, Alpharius getting cut in half and then impaled by his own spear by Dorn because Dorn's secretly a badass.
I still think that it was Omegon, not
I
Alfarius.
That's fair. That's fair. I was just wondering if anyone else got like end of the original Star Wars movie vibes from it. It's like strike me down and I'll only be more powerful than you can ever imagine. Sort of
No.
thing.
Oh, I never thought about that till now.
Yeah, no,
But
I
I
never
love
did either.
I love how Jay and Snickering are like, no.
No.
I mean, I didn't read it yet, so
Well, I still need to read the Praetorian Adorn. It's I think it's on my list. I still gotta do my
Research.
my book club and my other books, and you guys know how much I read. I probably read 4 books a month or listen to 4 books a month
Awesome.
uh, of Black Library. Sometimes I need to take a break and read something other than 40K. Then I'll go down like a completely different rabbit hole with some of my Norse Viking stories. But
We
is
all
there
need
anything
brain
else we want to talk
cleansers now and
about?
again. Yeah.
All right, then let's move into closing comments.
Actually, before we do that, I think we should add on how did you know how did he know to go to Pluto to go against Alpharius?
Mm. Mm.
You forgot to mention that little taunt he
I don't.
did.
I don't know why Dorn was on Pluto. I have not read Praetorian Adorn yet.
Was it Dorn or the book then? That's the book that had the challenge.
Yes, I don't know. Yeah, that's the fight. That book. That's the book where Dorn kills Alpharius.
Oh no! I mean like before then. How did he know to go to Pluto? It's because
I don't
Alpharius
know.
challenged him. He sent Alpha Legions on a suicide mission to the Emperor's, what's the word again? Mm,
I don't know.
Well, apparently there's a vault underneath the Emperor's main building, and
Uh-huh.
it had a
His palace?
statues. Yep, his palace.
Oh, this is when he like defaced the statues.
Yes, and told
Okay.
told Dorn where exactly he was going to be and to meet him there.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting. The
That
plot thickens.
that's how he went to Pluto and knew that Alpharius was going to be there.
That's
Do
right.
you
Yep.
think one of the brothers like tipped Dorn off on purpose to get the other brother killed?
No, that was exactly his plan. He wanted him there.
Interesting. So, and then he tries to bring Dorn to his side while they're fighting. That he's literally like, "You need to come to our side." Blah blah blah, and Dorn's like, "No."
We don't know what ultimately his plan was, but Dorn wasn't having it. He just wanted to kill him.
Did you read Praetorian Adorn?
No,
Okay.
I just know
Well,
the
I
story
will.
because I was trying to do, research.
He did his
Interesting.
homework, man.
Well,
Yes.
we all did. I think we all did some fantastic homework. Um, and I really appreciate you guys buying in on this style for this episode. Kind of having a layout and topics that we wanted to go through about the timeline.
I do
I
think
really appreciate it.
I do think next time we should be a little bit more organized. We're kind of everywhere again.
Well,
Look, you could take the Marine out of the Alpha Legion, but you can't take the Alpha Legion out of the Marine. All right, that's the way it is.
Lol. Humanity.
Humanity.
All right, gents. All right, closing comments because this old man's got to go to bed here soon, and I got to wake up at 2:30 in the morning. Oh,
Grandpa's got to go to bed.
Yeah. So this was really fun going into and talking about like the origin of the legions and how the whole thing is shrouded in misdirection and lies. And I don't know, there's this way that it's a microcosm of the whole struggle within the 40K universe where what exactly really happened, when did it happen, blah blah blah. That whole thing is epitomized here with the Alpha Legion. And it's just a great way to look at that. I love the dichotomy of it, and also the way if out of all of the characters, out of all of the Primarch characters, Alfarius and Omegon are the most human because they're not one-dimensional or two-dimensional like the other ones. You know, yeah, and if nothing else, that's probably what connects them even closer to humanity than anything is that aspect.
I, th- I agree with that to an extent. I
Mhm.
think people are probably disagree with me, but I always thought Horus before his corruption was very human too. Like
Mhm.
like he was very charismatic. He was a very charismatic person, but he also had that rage in him. Like the Luna Wolves were just known for just being crazy shock troops.
Right.
But then you had this super charismatic leader who loved his sons and uh was knew how to just talk to people and influence people, and that was one of his great powers was his ability to talk to people, and I think that was one of the things that made him human. And then
Mm.
obviously, Vulcan just being like sometimes when I think of Vulcan, I just think of like him walking around a field of flowers and just sniffing them all the time for whatever reason.
You
But
well, yeah, it's because Vulcan's the working man. But once again, we're chasing squirrels.
yeah, but we talked about like it's related. I mean, it's connected though with the whole Alpharius being the most human. Like when you're talking about multi-dimensional characters within the setting, especially Primarchs, because Primarchs are usually good at one thing and one thing only.
Right.
Um, I think it's relatable, and for those characters like Horus, or Alpharius, or Vulcan, or even Sanguinius. But Sanguinius is a little bit too perfect, in a lot of ways. But yeah, I get what you're saying though.
Sure.
Anyone else?
I did have something I wanted to bring up about the Ghost Legion.
Do it.
So, if you look at the media, you'll see a sigil in the first picture.
All right.
So apparently, even though depending on what headhunter team was doing or where they were, they would have different markings on their armor. They'll have all black, but they'll have different like tactical markings, maybe a marking to show that they're in that area of operation under them. If there was a legion there, like Dark Angels, you know,
It's like a mix between a 4 and a 5.
yep. And then
Okay.
this sigil is always on the Ghost Legion, though, apparently. And it's called the Aeternus. And it stands for Eternal, Everlasting, Imperishable perpetual. You get the idea. So they
Alright.
would always have that marking on their armor, though.
Interesting.
That sounds like Alfarius. Don't you guys think?
For sure.
Are you talking about that thing, that icon that looks almost like a 4 and a 5 blended together?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Ghost Legion would have that on their armor. So if anyone wants to do Ghost Legion, they have, black armor, the sigil, and whatever markings they have for the mission.
Very cool.
Yeah. If I had the money and the time, either A, I would hire a team of people to do it, but I would have them make armies of Alpha Legion, all these armies. Every single canon we know army out there, just to have it, but that'll never happen. Anyways, that was my squirrel moment.
Got it. All
Other than
right.
that, I have nothing else to add.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all of our viewers, thanks again for tuning in to Alpha Rejects. Next episode, we'll be going into the Alpha Legion and starting from the Great Scouring up into the modern era and what the Alpha Legion was doing in between then. We have a lot more to talk about. Of course, we're going to squirrel all the time. Once in a while, I think we all do it. You know what? It's fun. It's fun to talk about these things. We're into this hobby because it's fun. It's our escape from real life. And
Escape from everything.
exactly.
That's right.
And I'd like to thank Geronimo, for setting up this podcast. He's our captain, keeps us on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Not enough.
And yeah, and I'd like to thank all three of you for buying into doing the homework, reading one or two of the books, and just participating in this. We did a little bit different this episode, so thanks again.
It's awesome. It's a pleasure. Always a joy to spend time with you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no kidding. It's always good to be able to finally sit down, and release my inner tism with fellow like-minded people.
What do you mean release? You got stuttered like 5 times this episode.
I stuttered a lot, but hey, I don't ever get to talk about Warhammer ever.
I get
And when
you.
when I do talk about it, I have people that are like, "You are the biggest nerd I have ever talked to. Get away from me."
Yeah.
That's what my girlfriend says all the time. Is I'm a nerd.
Lol.
It's like she makes fun of me, like, "Oh, you do all this other manly stuff, and then you paint plastic spacemen. Real cool."
It's called art.
Bring it.
All right, ladies and
All right,
gentlemen,
guys.
thanks again. We will talk to you next time.
Peace out, yo.